everyone has a game plan until you get punched in the face.
I think they have a slogan for it. I think it's it just means more.
I would probably have hated covering you. For me, football was everything. If I'm not back down there again this fall and they have a really good year, they make the college football playoff, I might not be welcome back in Columbia. And I wouldn't blame fans. And I'm like, what? Him and Frank Martin. I love Frank. I absolutely love Frank. I still talk with Frank to this day. But I felt like I was like in my mom's like third grade class and just like, park, car, water.
So that's who your source is.
Oh, my source was that damn Sasquatch. That's who it was.
Looking for the perfect spot to unwind? Steelhead Brewing in Casey has you covered. Whether you're craving a refreshing craft beer or just a great time with friends and family, Steel Hands has it all. With a variety of craft beers, spacious outdoor beer gardens, and a delicious food menu, there's something for everyone. Plus, join them for free live music every Thursday through Sunday. Visit steelhandsbrewing.com to see their lineup of upcoming events or host your own. Handforced and Casey and voted best local brewery again this year. Go visit steelhandsbrewing.com.
All right, you carnivores, we got a new sponsor, JCQ Farms, located off 177 Saluda Bluff Road in Batesburg, South Carolina. Huge Gamecock family, folks. So they have grass-fed beef, pasture-raised pork, and they have absolutely no antibiotics, no hormones, and all of the animals are treated humanely. They also practice regenerative farming. Right now, their top sellers are tomahawk ribeyes, cowboy ribeyes, fillets, bacon, and this primal ground beef mixture. It's heart, liver, and beef mix. If you're going to get any sort of meat, get it from here, folks.
All right, tailgaters, we are back with a special guest here. I'm gonna cheers to you. We got Mike
Is that a
Uva.
Sprite?
Mike Uva.
Yeah,
Uva.
it's Uva. I mean, it's in my profile. I know reading's hard for you, but Uva. I never correct people because I hate the people that's like, oh, no, it's pronounced this way, it's pronounced that way. But for anyone that gives a crap, it is Uva.
Well, I had to bust your balls.
I mean, I can't tell. I mean, I don't know I don't think that's a Sprite there. So, you never know with you.
Nope. It is a highlight local.
Highlight. That's the old little game, right? Where they freaking sling it against the wall.
I don't know what it's called, but it's a great IPA is what it is. We got Mike Uva on the pod, man. I know we've been trying to get you on for a little bit, but you've been slightly preoccupied with engagements and working up north and just you want to tell anybody about that? Or
I mean, goodness, bar set real low. I mean, we had Jackie Bradley, we had Witt on, and Spurrier, and now you're here with me. I mean, you guys are already running out of guests.
Well, I mean, you and Jamie Spronis. That's a good little yin and yang there.
And I'm grateful. You guys are doing an awesome job, and obviously getting to know you guys over the last couple of years. I mean, you're showing people who you really are. I mean, exactly who you guys are away from the camera. Yeah, it's been busy. I've been doing the Rhode Island TV sportscasting gig for CBS station up in Rhode Island, covering the Patriots. I was going to say Celtics, but that was short-lived.
Yeah.
Obviously with that second round bounce, but covering the teams up here, still covering the Gamecocks with Gamecock Central. And then, as you alluded to, got engaged as well. So it's been real busy these last couple of months for sure.
Yeah, well, I got a question, kind of diving into being up there. Like, Boston's obviously a ginormous sports town. Like, what do they call it? Championship town because of all the championships they've won. How does that kind of differ from being in South Carolina?
Yeah, so I think the biggest difference is when you look at it from a pro college standpoint, because I'm still covering some colleges here in Rhode Island, cover the University of Rhode Island. Their head coach, actually, his first gig was a GA working at South Carolina back in the 80s. How about that? So, and they had
Coach Flem?
Coach Flem, yep, Coach Flem. He worked for, oh my goodness, blanking the name here. Legendary South Carolina coach, Jim Morrison, I believe.
Yep.
So that was his first gig. And then, going to a small college, I went to a D2 school. That's an FCS program. It's definitely different after going down south and coming up here. It's almost like you put on a different pair of glasses in a sense, because for me, being a New Englander, growing up, right outside of Boston, I was just so used to pro sports. I mean, my first college football game was a pretty good one. It was Miami taking on Boston College, and that was that loaded 0-1 Miami team. And I don't think I
That's
fully
right.
appreciated at the time, like what I was seeing. But it's just the difference with pro and college. Like up here, it's just all pro driven. It's just not with college football up here. It's just not the same. College baseball, college basketball, it's just not the same. And I have a lot of respect for the smaller schools up here, having gone through it. But at the same time, too, you just can't compare it. I mean, it is truly life and death, as we all know, down in the SEC when you're talking about football and some of these other sports. I think that would be just the biggest difference outside of the obvious, which is it's freaking cold up here as well.
Well, I mean, it's also I think they have a slogan for it. I think it's it just means more.
It just means more.
No, it certainly does. And I'll say this. I was out covering a high school football game, and I was watching, like in between plays, I was watching the Alabama Vanderbilt football game on my phone. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It's like, oh my God, Vanderbilt's going to upset Alabama. And like, I'm next to some people. I'm like, you guys see this? And they're like, why do you care so much about SEC football? And at that point, I kind of had to remind myself, after being in the South for 10 years, like, yeah, I'm not in the South anymore. Like
Yeah.
it's just people don't, I wouldn't say people up here don't fully get it, because I think the people that do follow it, they understand it. But even as an outsider, it's like, all right, I liked SEC football. I liked college football when I was, living up north before I moved to Mississippi in 2015. But I didn't fully understand it until I got down there.
Yeah, I mean, I can say when I meandered up north to play for the Buffalo Bills, it was definitely a culture shock that college football is not well represented up there. I mean, University of Buffalo is right there. I mean, smaller Division I program, but I mean, I think we had a bye week, and Auburn, Alabama was on TV, and we went to a high-end sports bar, grabbed dinner, and we're hanging out, having drinks, and not one person was watching the game on TV. Like it was like white noise. And I'm like, what's wrong with you people? And they're like, oh, well, we're here for the Bills, and they only care about the Bills and the Sabres. So it's definitely real. And then it's true, because when you come down here, I mean, I grew up in Florida, grew up a big Gator fan, but I mean, even being here in South Carolina, like Saturdays down south for my boy Steven. It's a whole different monster.
Oh, and it was tough. It was definitely tough this past season not being down there. Obviously, 2022, when I had the freelance gig working for the CBS station up in Boston doing the pre and post game shows for the Patriots, maybe I'm just bad luck, fellas, because those 2 years I've been gone, feels like South Carolina has had their best year since you guys played. So I don't know. I mean, if I'm not back down there again this fall and they have a really good year, they make the college football playoff, I might not be welcome back in Columbia, and I wouldn't blame fans.
Well, it's because you were breaking all the news. You were putting the stuff out there too quick. You were giving the opposing teams all the scouting reports and all that stuff. I heard all this.
The only time I'm trying to think, the only time I pissed anyone off at South Carolina, to my knowledge, one was a non-football incident. I won't say who called me. This was a couple of years back, but I will say pretty damn high up on the totem pole. I'll just leave it at that. And he was not too happy with something I put out. And we had a cordial conversation. And what's ironic,
I think I might know who you're referring
well,
to.
what's ironic is after a day or two, based on what I put out, and I'm trying to be careful here, the coach of that team and a couple players reached out to me and they said, thank you for doing that. So that was like one of those ironic things, like the head coach had like, thank you for doing that. The only other time I pissed someone off, to my knowledge, again, I got a phone call, was, and you look back at it, it makes sense, was when I'd put out injury stuff ahead of games, which looking back at it now, it's like, who does that really benefit, right? I think the only thing that pissed me off was like, you go into a press conference and you would ask Muschamp, like, all right, what's the situation with, Ryan Helinski or whatever, right? Like the guy's arm's like hanging off and it's on the floor. And it's like, oh yeah, he's got a hurt arm. Oh, he's got a hurt leg. He's got like, what can you tell us about his ankle? Yeah, he has an ankle. It's like, all right, Will, which is funny.
But that's the Bill Belichick model.
Correct. And what's funny is what's funny is Muschamp and I, we connected a couple times since he's moved on from South Carolina. He recruited a player at my dad's school that's now heading into his third year at Georgia as a safety, phenomenal player. And then Will and I, we ran into each other over a year ago at a restaurant in South Carolina and shared a couple of drinks, a couple of laughs. And what's funny is I said, man, looking back, he's like, no, he's like, you were just doing your job. He's like, but like, basically to your point, Pat, he had the same mindset as Belichick, as Saban. And, and that's one thing. It's like, I'm going to do my job, but at the same time too, I don't want to, especially that's another difference with college and pros. It's like, now they have an injury report for SEC games. You're not trying to like screw anyone over, but it's just like, all right, yeah, this guy's like healthy as can be. Then you find out, I mean, the kid's in a wheelchair or something the next day. And obviously I'm being a little extreme, and you get that. It's like, okay, you might have to say something. So you try to walk that fine line. That's one thing I would say. I don't know. I regret. I just would have done differently looking back. Just a young journalist, though. You figure that out early in your career, and you make improvements over time.
Well, it kind of seems like the political game. I mean, look at what's going on now with.
Yeah.
You kind of without saying it, I don't wish that kind of shit on anybody, but
yeah, that's true.
But it is. But yeah, we'll kind of get away from that. I know Pat loves when I talk politics.
Hey, I mean, yeah. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. But no, but I know, just kind of get back to where, Pat and I like to have like kind of pre-podcast questions. So I kind of want to get back to it. I know you alluded to it earlier. So you went to Assumption.
Yep.
You're from up north. Kind of tell us about that journey, and why do you want to get into sports journalism, and just kind of tell your story about that whole beginning.
Yeah, I mean, for me, football was everything, and I thought it was, everything it was meant to be, being up in New England until you get down in the South. My dad's been coaching high school ball for over 40 years. I thought that's what the profession I was going to get into, was getting into college coaching. And then in high school, my senior year, one of my teammates, and it happened in a preseason game, I was playing corner on one side, my teammates on the other side. It was just like, I don't know, a 10-yard dig route. And because the way that he got caught up in it, safety came over the top, the player landed on top of him and he fractured his C5. Well, what happened was the year before, he's a triplet. I was also in another game. His other brother fractured the same exact neck injury, C5 vertebrae. Now, his other brother, Brandon, he was only in a neck brace. Jared was in a wheelchair. So at that point, it's certainly like it changes you as a person. And I remember writing a story on his rehab process. He went to the Shepherd Center down in Atlanta, Georgia. He was there for about 105 days. And when he came back, I remember writing a story about how he was doing with his rehab process. It was for the school newspaper, but then some of the big newspapers around the city, they picked it up. I think I sent it out. I don't know if it was the Herald or Globe. I sent it out to a couple of other places, and it kind of blew up. And it was like, hey, it got good feedback. It was just like, this is really good. Is this something you're interested in doing? And I never really thought about it at the time. You're a high school senior. You don't know what the hell you're going to do with the rest of your life. So at that point, I thought, okay, maybe this is something I want to do. Get to college. I wanted to play college football. As you guys know, God didn't bless me with the height by any means. They blessed it with my friggin' brother, though, that jabroni. 6'4". If I was him, I could have been a D1 All-American at edge, but that's a different story. So so go to D2 school. I don't have time to be able to do an internship or anything like that. Well, we have a media center, and that's the beauty of going to a non-broadcasting school, is that you don't have to wait till your junior, senior year to be able to touch the equipment. We started a TV show from scratch my sophomore year, reality sports talk with Reality in the U. Started having all these guests on, Mark Bavaro, Reese Davis called in one time. And so it was really neat to be able to do stuff like that. And then afterwards, worked at ESPN Boston High School, covered some high school sports, covered some college sports, and all I wanted to do was get a break. I applied to like 34 jobs. I remember keeping every name of every place that either said no to me or ignored me, and I still have that list because you have that football mentality. It's like, all right, I'm going to prove you wrong. So didn't get an opportunity to get into TV. I'm thinking to myself, like, what the hell am I going to do with the rest of my life? Finally, someone gave me an opportunity in the middle of nowhere in Greenville, Mississippi, one of the smallest markets in the country. And, I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason, especially when you look back at stuff. Because I go down there, well, what happens a couple months in? I'm at a golf tournament, and I see this big old guy roll up next to me in a golf cart, smoking a cigar. And we start talking, and he's like, you work for a TV station down here? And I say, yeah. And he's like, yeah, I work in TV in South Carolina. I said, no kidding. I said, I was just down there, about a year ago at the Medal of Honor Bowl, or a couple months back at the Medal of Honor Bowl, covering, Malcolm Butler. I was with my old high school coach, who some of you may know, Sean Stellato, who was is an NFL agent. Just kind of made the rounds the last year or two with the fedora and everything. And I can tell you, he's always dressed like that.
That's crazy.
So I'm talking with this guy. Come to find out, that guy, I held a camera for him at the Medal of Honor Bowl because he needed someone to do his stand-up. And that guy happened to be Corey Miller. So Corey and I meet in the middle of nowhere in Greenville, Mississippi. Well, fast forward a year later, that same weekend is when the weekend job opened up at Watch Fox. So I have all these people that Corey has known for, 15 plus years going up to him, say, hey, give Mike a shot. Give Mike a shot. I mean, we're talking about like Jim McMahon, you have like Morgan Freeman there that weekend, like people that they don't really know me, but they know of me from covering this event. And they're just going up to Corey saying, give this guy a shot, give this guy a shot. And if it wasn't for Corey Miller, I would never have come to Columbia, South Carolina. And that's how I got the job at Watch Fox.
Pastor Payne.
Yep.
Yeah. He hits the shit out of a golf ball, if I'm not mistaken.
He does.
His back is bad. I don't think he's playing that much right now. But yeah, I mean, he played linebacker.
He's a tank
next to Lawrence Taylor. That the guy can hurt a golf ball.
Yeah, I remember like at the station sometimes, like he'd be sitting down and he would just tell us about, like, he would tell me about the, pinched a nerve, and I don't, want to get too medical because I don't know all the details. I'm trying to remember them all, but he had like a nerve issue with his back from something, and he said that if he could have done it differently, he would have took care of it a little bit earlier. But I mean, yeah, to your point, Pat, I mean, God bless you, because you played in the league for a decade. You get it, especially at the fullback position. I mean, your body, the way your body gets hit, I mean, that's not going to just impact you that season or the next year. I mean, that's going to impact you for some guys for the rest of their life. So God bless him for that. He certainly earned that name, though.
Yes, he did. He was I wouldn't want to block him now. He's
Yeah, that guy's an absolute unit. Did you know of South Carolina growing up? I don't know if I can speak for Pat, but when I was getting recruited, I had no idea where the hell University of South Carolina even was on the map.
Well, I mean, Gamecock fans will get a smile out of this. I had no idea Clemson was in South Carolina until I got down there. That's for damn sure, because I had to cover both schools.
Yeah.
But for South Carolina, I mean, I think, and it's probably like some people that live down south, and, granted, as you get older, you kind of have a better idea. But I thought South Carolina was basically like right next to Florida. Like, I had no idea where South Carolina was, other than the fact that it's like, all right, it's somewhere down here. We'd have a million commercials, it felt like, because of some of the airlines from Massachusetts down, Boston down to like Myrtle Beach. I had no idea Myrtle Beach was in South Carolina. I had no friggin' idea, but we'd see a million Myrtle Beach commercials all the time. Like, oh, go down here, go golf. And it's like, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And no disrespect to Myrtle Beach, but
there's a lot of views in Myrtle Beach right now. There's a lot of Yankees that have moved down to Myrtle Beach for sure.
We can keep them. I'm sure people that are in the Columbia area said just keep them over there. Keep them over there.
Charleston's getting swelled
it's slowly
Northeast.
Yeah. So I guess what's real funny is, and I wish I could pop up. I don't know. It'd be great, just putting it up to the camera. But what's real funny is spring break, my senior year, we're down, of course, at PCB. And there were a few photos that I actually took, because I said, all right, let's be smart and let's not take too many photos, because that's all I need is 10 years from now, do something stupid. And, this thing comes back and it bites me in the ass. So I just remember, a couple years after I was working in South Carolina, my phone storage is like max. So I'm trying to delete photos. And I just remember going through, I'm just like, look at that. And it was I took a photo directly behind me. And this would have been 2014. There's just all the flags for all the colleges on the beach, because it was a Luke Bryan concert on the beach. And we're inside, right on the inside, but close to the beach near the gate. and there's just 3 South Carolina flags directly behind my head. And it was just one of those things, like, looking back at it, it's just like, no, this was meant to be. Like, it was meant to be for me to go down to South Carolina. Like, it wasn't like a Clemson flag or, TikTok Tech or, Pastrami State. Like, it was, South Carolina flags behind me.
I mean, that's a wild ass story, man.
Now a word from our sponsor, Tony Pope at State Farm. Switching is easy. We do it all the time. We switch on the lights, we switch the TV channels, and some of us switch partners while square dancing. Well, that's a stretch. But what's not a stretch is how you can switch and save with State Farm. In fact, State Farm agent Tony Pope, right here in South Carolina, can switch you over so you can start saving today. Tony and his team are ready to welcome you to the State Farm neighborhood. With Tony Pope, it's easy to switch and save. Just give him a call at 843-851-2222 or visit tonypope.com. When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Gamecock fans, if you want to look your best, go swing by Granger Owings on Main Street or in the Trenton Plaza. Granger Owings strives to deliver the best-in-class customer service paired with the finest fashion. Their stylists truly cater to each customer, starting with a personalized consultation every time, and help each individual build a wardrobe based on their lifestyle needs, occasions, and preferences. At Granger Owings, you will find the latest from classic, up-and-coming, designer brands of clothing and shoes for men and women, from business attire to custom clothing to sportswear, weekend wear, and formal wear. They dress their customers for every occasion.
Listen up, Gamecock Nation. Meet your new favorite streamer, Deputy Smitty. A former police officer and diehard South Carolina Gamecock fan, Deputy Smitty brings action-packed content to life every night on Twitch starting at 9:30 p.m. Connect with him on social media by searching Deputy Smitty and join his growing community on Discord at discord.gg/Deputy Smitty. So grab a drink and catch the thrills, laughs, and plenty of Gamecock pride in every stream.
What do you think's been the most surprising, like, I guess, part of covering South Carolina and like Gamecocks athletics over the course of you what, 10 years?
Yeah,
Probably
this will
longer
be
than that, right?
well. This season will mark 10 years of covering South Carolina football. I've covered SEC ball now for 10, going on 11 years. Because my first year covering SEC, I was in Mississippi. Covered some of the smaller schools. Covered Mississippi Valley State, but we also covered Ole Miss and Mississippi State. So I covered Dak Prescott's senior year. Dan Mullen and I hit it off because his high school basketball, track, and football coach was an assistant coach for me in high school, Joe Levitt. So we got to hit it off. He was the one. Dan Mullen, when I was in South Carolina, I don't do it up here because people I don't think would find it cute. They'd probably just be like, buddy, get off TV. But the whole slogan of don't touch that clicker, that originated from Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen gave me that idea when I was in Mississippi.
Yep.
So I remember covering that. I covered Swag Kelly. I remember covering them in the Sugar Bowl against Oklahoma State when they put a beating on them. And, Laramie Tonsil, Evan Ingram, I mean, all those guys. So it was cool. It was cool to be able to do that kind of stuff. I think the big thing for South Carolina, what has surprised me outside of the humidity, is just how I think the big thing is it's not even just football, just how talented the whole state is when it comes to just athletics. Like, you think of football naturally, but then you start to really break down the basketball in the state. Yep. Even the guys that didn't go to South Carolina and just the talent. And then you look, of course, at baseball. So I just think from a talent standpoint, I think I was, especially having an opportunity to cover high school sports for as many years as I did when I was at Watch Fox, that is what I think surprised me more than anything, is that, like, this state, okay, yeah, we know this state to produce football players. You think of, okay, Football City, USA up in Rock Hill, but you don't really think, if you're an outsider, how talented the whole state is and just athletics as a whole. And I think that was what really was eye-opening to me.
I want to say at one point there was an NFL stat that South Carolina had like the 5th or 6th most NFL players per state, which, being the small state of South Carolina, was pretty big.
That is
obviously, like, Texas, Florida, California were the top 3. But it was cool to see South Carolina. I want to say it was Georgia, South Carolina, kind of the Southeast right there. It's got a good little nugget.
Yeah. You could say that. I mean, there's not a whole lot else to do other than play football down here.
So, Mike, you just heard stories of me and Steven and the guys during our time, because you didn't cover us back then. I see you started in 2015. So I guess that was 2 years after Connor.
Yep.
So, I mean, I know you're a fact guy, so you went back and did your research and kind of figured out who we were, what we did your backstory. But no, it's been pretty cool how you've like encompassed being a South Carolina guy, being from up in the Northeast. I mean, other than your accent, you could maybe fool some people for being from here.
Yeah,
I was going to ask him that. Like, when does the Massachusetts, when does that accent wear off? Does it ever?
being back up here, it certainly has picked up a little bit. And it's like the little words that you don't think of. Like when you're just talking, it will just, or maybe the way you pronunciate a certain word that might not even necessarily be an R. I remember when I was in Mississippi, I tried to fade it. And I got a lot of great advice from people that have been in the business a long time. And one gentleman by the name of Chris Gasper has been writing at the Boston Globe for years. And he does some TV stuff as well and radio up here for the big stations. And I told him, I said, how the hell do you fade your accent? And he's like, when you're in the car, he's like, just practice saying certain words. So it'd be car, park. Like I honestly felt like I was, like both my parents were teachers, but I felt like I was like in my mom's like third grade class, just like, park, car, water. So like you just practice saying certain words. And the reason being is I always embrace the fact of being from Boston. But I never wanted to make it something where it's like, to me, I've always looked at it like this, especially being in the South for my first two jobs. Even though I lived in South Carolina for a long time, even though I'm still a resident in South Carolina, I always, even if I'm there for the rest of my life, I'm always going to view myself as a guest because, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why, if I had to, take a guess, why so many people down South get pissed off about Yankees coming down from up north is that they're like, oh, they're ruining our culture and this and that. Like, obviously you're going to be yourself, but at the same time too, I'm always going to go in there and I'm always going to respect the cultures and the opinions and everything as to why. I mean, I'm marrying a girl from Sumter, so I've certainly learned a lot. But I've always had that idea that like, hey, you're a guest.
Yeah.
Well, I can assure you with 100% certainty, you're not going to be able to please everybody. You're going to piss off somebody regardless.
Gee, you would know that, huh?
I don't give a fuck either way.
Can I tell you this, though? Going back to Pat's point, though, about doing research on you, and this is the God's honest truth, hand on the Bible.
Oh, God.
So I obviously didn't know much about both of you guys until I got down there. I mean, I just remember, I think the most I knew about South Carolina was when they won back-to-back College World Series. I think that was probably the most. Because at that point, I went to college from 2010 to 2014. So we're so locked into a season, freshman year, oh, Alabama lost, man. Like that's crazy. But like, I didn't really like dig into it as much. The person that introduced me to, oh, you got to find out about these guys, was the place that I would consider like my second home in South Carolina, Village Idiot.
Yeah,
so Brian Glenn, like just like, and people ask me like, how were you able to meet so many people in South Carolina? The God's honest truth was, and I got this advice from someone when I was trying to break into the business, I would put myself out there by going to the bars. Now, I think naturally people probably just think, oh, Mike probably just got hammered every night. Like, no. I mean, when you're younger, you could probably get away with some of that stuff. But I'd go out because I wanted to meet the people. I wanted to get an idea. And then certainly the longer you're down there.
Not to interrupt you, but that's my next question. So that's who your source is.
Oh, my source was that damn Sasquatch. That's who it was. But you'd go to these bars and I would get some of these great stories, not just South Carolina stories in terms of the Gamecocks. One of my favorite stories I did, the old location for the Woody, there was a guy, Don Steele, Don the Man of Steel. And if you'd go to the Woody, there'd be a spill on the ground. He'd have a mop. He'd stop mopping it up. And what would happen? It would create a circle. He'd start dancing with it. And everyone knew him as the mop guy, the mop man. Well, come to find out, this guy didn't even friggin' work there. He was just helping out. And he's third all time for the most knockouts in boxing history. So I was able to do a story on that guy. So I think going out to bars and meeting people, and especially in a place like Columbia, as I learned quickly, those are the type of places that you meet someone knows someone, and they'll introduce you to this person. They'll introduce you to that person. So that's how bars, the networking scene for me, that's how I was able to take off. But I mean, the big break for me was Marcus Lattimore giving me a break. That was certainly not at a bar, I can tell you that much, because Marcus wouldn't leave the house at that point.
Talk about that. Dive in more. Like, how did that come about? And kind of talk a little bit about your run with Marcus.
Yeah, so this would have been 2017.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd been down there for about a year now, and Marcus was doing a little giveaway where he'd take underprivileged children to Walmart, go out Christmas shopping.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember covering that. And I had met Marcus a year prior when he was working over at Heathwood Hall as a assistant coach, and then he works up to being the head coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him pulling me to the side, and we're in, I don't know, next to the friggin', cheese and crackers in aisle 11. I don't know where the hell we are, somewhere in Walmart. So we start talking, and what he says to me is, hey, he's like, I want to give you a heads up. He's like, I'm going to be going back to South Carolina, like, to work. And I said, damn, like, does anyone know that? He's like, just Coach Muschamp, my mom, and you. And I'm like, what? And like at that point, it was just like,
that's the source.
Yeah.
It's all making sense.
So that'd be a little too obvious, especially when Marcus was there. Well, especially when Marcus was there, I don't think he really got back to me right away for multiple reasons. So but I'm just like, Marcus, I said, why are you telling me this? He's like, I trust you. And that meant a lot, especially as a reporter. I mean, anything in life, just as a man, your word, your trust, like all that kind of stuff, like that means the world. So the fact that Marcus gave me a heads up, and once we put the story out, it was just like, damn, like, Chris Clark, Wes Mitchell, I remember them commenting like, nice scoop, like guys that get paid to cover the Gamecocks 24/7. Like I outscooped them. Like, who the hell's this guy? Who's this jamoke from up north? So I think being able to do that certainly helped me out a lot. What people don't know is this. It drove me friggin' nuts. I think I've told them this. Pissed me off. So we're down at Tampa for the Outback Bowl. Steven and I actually ran into each other. I remember, we'll get to that story in a minute, but Steven and I ran into each other down there, and I'm covering the Outback Bowl, and I asked Marcus, hey, can we do like a sit-down interview? We'll put it in-house, and then when you're ready to put the news out, we'll put the interview out. He's like, yeah, sure. So I left Tampa, Florida around, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night, 9:30 at night, whatever it is, 7.5 hour ride. I mean, I'm not Mario Andretti over here like Garcia, so I don't know how quick he can get up there, but from Tampa to Columbia. But I remember leaving, and I get up there. I went home, slept 1 hour, and then I showed up at Heathwood Hall. Well, I don't have Marcus's number. We just DM each other. Marcus isn't there. Eventually, I was able to track down his number. He texts me back, and I can't remember if he was in Montana. He's like, oh, sorry, Mike. He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm staying an extra night in Montana. He's like, you want to do it tomorrow? And I'm just like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. I drove all the way back through the night. I haven't slept at all. But it turned out to be the best thing that could have happened because he's like, why don't you just come over to my house? We do the sit-down interview, and then we put it out, as soon as he told his players. That was the deal. Let me tell my players first so they don't find out from the media, and then you can put that out. And that was my big break, was Marcus trusting me.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, I know Pat and I have run into this over the course. So this is, what did Dakota say, our 41st weekend?
41st, this would be 42. Good number.
42 weeks in a row of doing this podcast. And as Pat can surely test, we've had guys that have said, yeah, we'll be on there. And then just nothing. Yeah. Complete radio silence.
And I love Marcus. We did a podcast together. I've told Marcus this. We've had some great conversations about just life. There's been some things that I've gone through in my life, and he shared some personal things that people on the outside don't know, and it's just I appreciate stuff like that.
Well, I mean, I think that kind of leads us into the next question. I think you kind of already answered it. Like, would you say that Marcus, or is there another player or maybe a coach that what you would say is one of the more entertaining or interesting people that you've covered over the course of your career?
Well, you would certainly be up there. There's no question about that. And I never had to cover you.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
If I had to cover you as a player, I probably would have been friggin' dry. Like I would probably have hated covering you simply because I'd be like sitting there and I'd get a phone call in the middle of the night, like, all right, you're going to have to deal with this in the morning. I'd be like, Jesus, Steven. I'm not saying that could be, how a reporter or two has felt about your career that has said that to me. But that's how I probably would have reacted.
But keeps you on your toes, gives you something to write about.
Well, especially in this era. You know what? Having said that, Pat, in this era with digital and stuff, man, Steven would have been friggin' incredible. We would have had content galore. He probably would have been paying the bills at Gamecock Center for crying out loud. We all been getting raises for Christmas. I'm trying to think from an entertainment standpoint. I think one person I really enjoy, and it's not a Gamecock person per se, but he has Gamecock ties certainly because he was a running back coach there for a while. But it was my time covering Buddy Pugh when he was the head coach of South Carolina State.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait on Mondays to get to the press conference to cover Buddy Pugh because you had no friggin' idea what the hell he was going to say. Him and Frank Martin. I loved Frank. I absolutely love Frank. I still talk with Frank to this day. Wish things could have worked out differently, at South Carolina. But, that Final Four run, that will be something that Gamecock fans will be talking about forever. Hopefully there'll be another one in the near future, so it won't be the only one. But Frank Martin would be another person. And there's, I've enjoyed, covering Don Staley and all the other but I'd say Frank and Buddy Pugh for sure.
Yeah, and that leads into kind of the next thing I was curious is like how does like your relationship go as a reporter with these certain head coaches in different sports? Like I know obviously you have a job to do, put content out there, but how is that relationship sitting in these media rooms, asking the questions? Sometimes coaching can be spicy. Sometimes they can be kind of an open book. It's kind of a different mood, but tap into that and how you balance that.
So for me, when I got down there were certainly coaches who were already established, right? Like it wasn't like, okay, I'm coming in there and this guy's already been, he's brand new. So from that standpoint, I'm sure there's going to be some coaches that will look at you and be like, all right, this kid has to earn my trust. As opposed to when you have a new coach that comes in. Don't get me wrong, you still got to earn their trust, but they're coming in and they're trying to make a name. And I think he'd be okay with me sharing this. So when Shane Beamer got there was a player that they recruited from my school, right? There was a kid that transferred on in, and Carlin Splattel, he was a D2 corner at Assumption, came in after me, comes into South Carolina now. So I remember I was with someone, and I was just happened to be in the building, and Shane, popped his head out, and I introduced myself. Shane and I had talked already. There was like Zoom press conferences because that was during that time period with COVID.
Yep.
But it was the first time we had a chance to actually like shake hands, other than when I, jumped out of the car and videotaped him his first day walking into the building when he was with Ray Tanner. So I remember talking to him and I just said, hey, you're going to really like this kid. And then I told him, and this is kind of to answer your question, Pat, is that I told Shane, I said, look, I'm going to do my job. And if there's anything where I feel like it could be detrimental to the team or, something that you would probably want to be made aware of, I will let you know. I said, I will get your number from someone. And I said, I will let you know. So I think it's just doing those little things that it's that trust, right?
Yep.
And fortunately, there hasn't been anything like too earth shattering, but just kind of letting them know, because at the end of the day, as you guys know, especially in this era, coaching sometimes is the last thing that you're having to deal with, because you're dealing with
100%.
so much. I mean, you're talking about
portals
100
and NIL.
Yeah. I mean, never mind the NIL stuff, you guys know. And I think this is what probably helps guys like, all of us, is that when you play football on any level, you understand how to interact with over 100 different personalities. So,
Right.
He's dealing with that every day. And it's kind of just like, hey, look, I'm going to do my job, but at the same time too, I'm not going to just put something out there to piss you off. Right. If there's something that could be that way, I'll give you a heads up. I'll give you a message. I'll say, hey, look, this came across my desk. Want to make you aware of it. And I think I've done that with other coaches over the years as well.
Well, I mean, yeah, just kind of hit on that for a second. I mean, obviously you have a hell of a relationship with Beamer. I mean, talk about the engagement thing. I mean, was that kind of relationship the same with the previous coaching staff? Do you think you could have asked Coach Muschamp, hey man, you mind if I come on the 50-yard line and will you kind of play along and let me do this engagement or this proposal?
So Muschamp, the person, I think he would say yes. Muschamp, the coach at the time, I don't think he would have. And I think the reason why is and him and Muschamp and I, we've had conversations about this, is that he had to set the tone. Back to Pat's point, he had to set the tone when he talked to the media. Very Belichick-like,
Right.
very Saban-like, where when he's talking to the media, with all due respect to the fans, with all due respect to my colleagues in the media, he's not talking to us. He's not talking to you guys. He's talking to his team. He's not naive. He knows that, especially now, and Beamer knows this, when he talks to the media, what are they going to do? They're going to go on their phones. They're going to see what's being said.
Pat, were you there when Spurrier? I forgot who he ripped in the media. Were you there for that? I know. Mike knows what I'm talking about. I forgot. Was it Ron Morrison? Was that name? Is that?
Oh yeah.
He's like, yeah, you over there, you're done. I don't want to see your face. Or he said something
Well,
just off the
I
wall.
mean, Shane's done that a few times too. I mean, if people in the media get out of line, I think it's fair. I mean, especially
I think it's fair
as a
too.
coach to put him in check. And
You got to protect your guys, and
Yep.
I get that, and that's not to say. I think that's the tough part for me working at Gamecock Central. Like some people probably just think, oh, everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows. It's like, trust me, I'm not going to do that, right? Because I think that's the other thing too. Especially like let's use for example, baseball season. It wasn't a great year. A couple of years ago, basketball. Especially towards the end of the Frank Martin era, I would text Frank and be like, look, we're going to have to put stuff out like this. And he's like, I understand. He's like, all I ask is be fair to me and the players. That's all he asks.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like, this is going to come out. And that doesn't mean you always have to give them a heads up, like with stuff like that. But it's walking that fine line because to your point, Steven, it's like you want to be able to protect your players if you're a coach. You don't want to feel like they're getting kicked. And I would say this in this era, and I'm not saying necessarily you guys agree. I think I know what you guys are going to say, but I'll let you guys say it. In this era, in comparison to maybe say 10 years ago when I first started working in this business, I think it's all right to take the kitty gloves off and be a little bit more direct about players because these guys are getting paid. Does that mean every single player is getting paid? No. Does that mean you treat them the exact same way as an NFL player, right? No, you don't have to hammer them, right? It's not like we're on sports talk radio up in, Buffalo or New England or whatever the case may be. And, Johnny muffs a punt and we just have to absolutely just hammer him. But I think it's okay to hold them a little bit more accountable simply because we're in an era now where some of these guys are making not just thousands, but millions now.
Millions.
all right, well, let's dive back into a little bit of the Gamecock stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been covering for 10 years. What's your most unforgettable moment so far during that time covering the Gamecocks?
Oh, goodness. I'd probably say some of the first couple of years. I mean, the Final Four run for the men's basketball team was
cool.
unbelievable. And with all due respect to Don Staley and the women's program and what they've been able to accomplish, because, I mean, you win 3 championships in that time period. I mean, it speaks for itself. And I don't think they're done winning championships in the near future. But I think what the difference was, no one expected that from the men. And to see the Fountain being out there reporting on the Fountain, college kids hold my legs. I think that was big. Being in the bar, I think certainly one of my favorite moments because it was actually, I think 2 days or a day after I put my resignation letter in for Watch Fox was when I did the walkthrough
On the
tailgate
Greek Village
in the tailgate lot. Frat lot. Yeah. And what's ironic is that
that was one take, right?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, that's something like that. You can only do one take. So the funny thing was the guy that held my camera, because at a station like that, especially on the weekend, we don't have photographers. It was a buddy of mine who actually turned out to be my real estate agent. And God bless him. Like he's walking backwards. He's never held a camera in his life. We just had someone pull his shirt. I said, just keep the camera still. And that was really neat because that was the beginning of the the Beamer era. So I think moments like that, certainly just being around the fans, being around the craziness, I think those are the things that I enjoy more than anything because for me, what it reminds me of is being like that athlete. And granted, I didn't play in front of the type of crowds that you guys played in front of, certainly at Assumption. But, just that environment when you have that energy and to go back to what Pat mentioned, you're kind of blacked out when you're between the lines. That's kind of what those moments feel like. It's just like you don't have a script necessarily. You're just going out there and you're winging it. And I think I like stuff like that more than anything because, you know, it's kind of like the old saying, like Mike Tyson, I have a plaque of it on my desk. You know, everyone has a game plan until you get punched in the face.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what I think about. It's like, you know, you can have all these plans of like, all right, I'm going to do this report. I had no idea that was going to turn into that. I was just going to set up a tripod, but no one was interacting with us behind. I said, all right, let's walk with the camera. Maybe that will grab people's attention. And it certainly did.
It sure shit did.
I mean, I would say that's one of the coolest things. And one of the things I respect about you most is you've always been a man amongst the people. You're going to the bars.
Yeah.
You're putting yourself out there. You're willing to go up and talk to anybody, whether you know them or not. If you know the relationship could be sustained, you've always kind of stuck your neck out there, and you protected your people too. I mean, you cover when you cover sports and teams, like you're obviously going to give your heart's sake, but you're also not going to throw people under the bus. And I think that's the beauty of what you do and why you're so successful at it.
No, I appreciate that.
All right, last question.
Yeah.
Who's your source?
My source, I told you, is that damn Sasquatch.
All right, dude, we appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Go Gamecocks and the Patriots.
Pat, can I want to end it on this.
Shit.
I want to end it on this
boy.
because I've got to know you more over the last couple of years. Patriots fan and stuff. I make sure I do not make any, and I'm not even, this isn't like even a backhand. I don't retweet or say anything about the 28-3 game because of you. Because of my respect for you, I never do. Does that mean I have
Until now.
Do so bad?
No. Because I mean, my childhood's basically gone. I mean, Brady was my childhood.
Yeah.
Like, it's gone. It's different when you cover a team and you see, like, you know, it's kind of like watching all like the wrestling stuff now, and like I'm watching like, you know, how the promos are cut. I'm like, oh, this stinks, man. Like, it's not the same.
Yeah.
I'll never make one of those jokes just because of you. You're my guy, and I'm never going to do that. So if there's any tweaks, they were from well before we met each other, and I have not made one since I've known you.
Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. There's a ginormous void in my heart because of that game. So hopefully you enjoyed it back then, but let's no longer.
I had to anchor that night, and I was literally in tears because like my station was crapping on us, and they're like, "You're gonna have to go on air, and you only brought a Patriots tie-in. You're an idiot." So,
Oh man.
yep.
Well, this was awesome.
All right, we appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate both of you guys too. Keep it up.
Yes, sir, man.